Hey guys, so I am going to talk about Texas Chainsaw. Look at that in 3D, which I just saw a couple nights ago. And so I wanted to do a review on it because I'm sure a lot of you want to hear my thoughts on it, if I would recommend it while it's still in theaters. So let's go ahead and jump right into the ratings. Before I give the overall rating, I want to go into the 5 categories that I talked about in my last video, which is acting, plot, scare factor, character, and effects. So, acting, I gave it a 9 out of 10 because the acting was very believable. That's one of the things I really liked about this movie. Plot is also a 9 because I'll give you a little short plot description. Basically, Heather's the main girl. She inherits this house from her grandmother and who passes away and leaves it to her. And while she's there, she discovers all this stuff, and obviously Leatherface comes into play. But basically, she's the inherit of this house, and that's why her and her friends go there so she can sign some paperwork and take on the house, and then they were gonna go to like New Orleans or something. I gave it a 9 because of it's not so much a twist at the end, but I'll talk about that later in this video, and I'll warn you before I talk about it in case you guys really want to see it without any spoilers. But as usual, my video will have some spoilers at the end. Scare factor, I gave it an 8. 8 is a pretty good number, I think, but I would have given it like a 9 or a 10 had it just been on gore. But I gave it an 8 because it wasn't all that scary. The scenes, they were intense at some points, but the scare came from the gore. So you saw a lot of blood and guts, which is awesome. But that doesn't really make it scary for me. I like the suspense, I don't know, when they're running, and I just think that's more scary than, you know, him cutting somebody in half or something. I don't know. I think that's scary, but it's not so much part of the scare factor that I like to think of when it comes to horror movies. Characters, I gave an 8. A lot of them were stupid and I didn't like them. The character, not the acting. The acting was good in those characters. They were good at playing those types of roles, but the roles themselves I didn't like. Anyway, the characters themselves, they weren't really all that round, obviously. Heather was the most round character. She really develops throughout the movie, and I like that, and she kind of changes throughout the movie, so I liked her character a lot, but any other character, no, except for Leatherface, obviously, because he's the killer and you have to like him. It's his movie. Effects, 10 out of 10. The blood was so realistic. I loved the gore so much. It was so good. It was really real. And I'm not sure 100% if everything was 100% accurate as far as, you know, time of death after you've been cut open. I don't know all of that, but honestly, the blood looked really real. It made me a little nauseous. It was kind of like watching Saw, but it was way more realistic than Saw, I think. So the effects were a 10. I loved it. Everything looked really real and amazing. I don't think there was CG at all, and well, probably a little bit. But I mean, I think they used a lot of real props and real guts, and not real guts, but you know, like prop guts instead of CG and stuff like that. So I think that made it a lot more realistic as well. So those are the 5 ratings. Now for the overall rating. Basically I just average out these scores, and I actually rounded up for this movie because when I averaged them, it came out to like 88% out of 100. So I gave it a 9 out of 10 overall. It's definitely a great movie. And let's go ahead and move on to my likes and dislikes, and then I'll do spoilers at the end. So what I liked about it, the gore. I mean, the gore was perfect. It was nauseating, and I loved the fact that they used real, like, looking things, and it looked real. So that was awesome. It was really realistic. I think that the plot was a lot stronger than any other Texas Chainsaw movie, because normally it's just about a guy killing teenagers, yada yada. You know, we've seen that before a million times. Obviously, Texas is one of the originals from the 1976 movie, so it's one of the original, like, serial killer type horror movies. But then they did the remake, I think, in 2003, and that was definitely not as strong. And then this one was really good. I thought this plot was really strong. It was completely different from other Texas movies, which I thought was good. Gave us a different kind of plot. It was a little bit more like Hollywood type plot, like there was more to it than just him slicing up people. I also love the beginning of the movie because it gives all this history about where Leatherface came from, his family, the other family that kind of burned down their house. And it was so cool how they used real footage from the 76 movie of Texas and just showed the whole history in the beginning of the movie. So if you've never seen those movies, the remake or the original before, and you watch this one, you can understand why he is the way he is and, you know, all of that. So you can go into this with a blind eye without ever have watched a Texas movie before and know exactly what happens and why. So it actually gives more information in this movie about why and the families and everything than any other movie, any other Texas movie that is. Okay, I only have one dislike without going into spoilers because then I have to talk about the end of the movie, so I'll warn you before I start talking about the spoilers like I always do. What I didn't like so much about it is there wasn't enough suspense. That's why the scare factor was an 8 instead, even though an 8's, you know, still a high number, but that's because the gore saved it. Now I'm just getting on to spoilers, so if you don't want to hear about the ending or anybody's deaths or how they die or anything like that, then you can tune out now. So thanks for sticking around to hear my ratings and stuff, but bye. So some of my dislikes for spoilers and towards the end is when her boyfriend dies. I mean, we all expect that at least 90% of the people in the movie die. I think that's safe to say. So the boyfriend does die, but his death was so ridiculous, and I think it was too quick, and he died too easily, and there wasn't much of a fight, and I wanted that to happen because he was supposed to be like the tough guy and all this. Not really so much tough guy, but you know, he was a guy, and I thought that there'd be more of a battle, and there wasn't. He died in a car accident. Like the van flipped, and that's how he died, and that was it. At the end, all her friends have died. She's the only one left. Some of the cops have died, and she just forgets all of that just ever happened, and she decides to take on Jed as a family member all of a sudden. Jed is Leatherface, by the way. I'm just calling him Jed because he becomes like an actual person towards the end, because you start to feel sorry for him and you root for him. It was really awesome how they did that. But she just forgets all that. She doesn't care. She's like, okay, you're my family. Your, you know, blood is stronger than anything else, so I'm just gonna take care of you now. And so she lives at the house with him, I don't know, forever. I don't know. Maybe there would be another one. Who knows? So that's all I have to talk about really for this movie. I highly recommend seeing it, especially in theaters, because you get that whole experience a lot, you know, more in your face. Maybe see it in 3D, maybe not if you don't like 3D. I don't know, I just don't think it was completely necessary. If you enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys soon.